Hi, hello everyone. Welcome back to my channel. Today let's talk about William Shakespeare's play, Hamlet. Hamlet, the Prince of Denmark, written between 1599 and 1602, and first published in a quarto version in 1603. William Shakespeare, 1564-1616. Shakespeare's Hamlet tells the story of Prince Hamlet of Denmark, who is plunged into deep grief and a moral uncertainty following the sudden death of his father, King Hamlet. When a ghost of King Hamlet reveals that he was murdered by his own brother Claudius, who then seized the throne and married Hamlet's mother Gertrude, Hamlet embarks on a quest for revenge. Throughout the play, Hamlet grapples with his duty, the nature of truth, and his own internal conflicts. His faint or perhaps real madness, introspective soliloquies, notably the one that begins with "to be or not to be," and the intricate web of court intrigue culminate in a tragic cascade of events that lead to multiple deaths, including his own. Let's analyze the themes in the book. Revenge and justice. The drive for vengeance is the engine of the plot. Hamlet's internal debate over whether to kill Claudius reflects deep concerns about moral justice versus personal retribution. Next theme, madness or feint and real madness. Hamlet's behavior oscillates between calculated pretense and a potential genuine madness. Ophelia's tragic descent into madness further complicates the theme, prompting questions about the fine line between sanity and insanity. The next theme, mortality and the meaning of life. Hamlet's musings on death, exemplified in his soliloquies and the graveyard scene with the Yorick skull, force both him and the audience to confront the inevitability of death and the transience of life. The next theme, corruption and decay. Denmark is depicted as a state in moral decay, encapsulated in a famous line, that is, "Something is rotten in the state of Denmark." This physical and political decay mirrors the corruption at the heart of the court. The next theme, that is, appearance versus reality. Deception permeates the play, from Hamlet's feigned madness to the play within the play, staged to catch the conscience of Claudius. The disparity between what is seen and what is true is a persistent source of tension. Now let's analyze the setting of the play. First of all, Elsinore Castle, Denmark. The entire drama unfolds within the cold, imposing walls of Elsinore. This setting contributes an atmosphere of confinement, suspicion, and a foreboding. The next setting is the supernatural realm. The appearance of King Hamlet's ghost adds a layer of the eerie and otherworldly, questioning the boundary between the natural and the supernatural. The next setting is the public versus private spaces. The public arena of the court and the private introspective spaces, such as seen in Hamlet's soliloquies, highlights the conflict between societal expectations and a personal turmoil. Now let's analyze the key motifs. First one, spying and surveillance. Almost every character engaged in some form of espionage. Polonius sends Reynaldo to spy on Laertes. Claudius and Polonius watch Hamlet closely. Even Hamlet himself uses the mousetrap play to expose Claudius. This pervasive mistrust underscores the corrupt nature of the court. The next motif, indecision and inaction. Hamlet's philosophical musings and hesitations reveal a recurring motif of paralysis. His inability to act decisively underpins the tragic progression of the narrative. The next motif, theatricality and performance. The play frequently draws attention to the nature of performance itself, both on stage and in life. Hamlet's soliloquies and the meta-theatrical play within a play emphasize the artifice inherent in human behavior. Now let's analyze the main symbols in the play. First of all, the ghost. Beyond serving as the catalyst for Hamlet's quest for vengeance, the ghost symbolizes unresolved issues from the past, the lingering presence of guilt, and the intersection of the natural with the supernatural. The next symbol is Yorick's skull. In a graveyard scene, Yorick's skull is a stark memento mori, that is a tangible reminder of death's inevitability and the decay that awaits all human beings. Memento mori is a phrase that means, remember that you will die. The next symbol is poison and corruption. The recurring imagery of poison, both literal, that is the venom in the final duel, and metaphorical, that is the moral corruption of Claudius and the court, reinforces the theme of decay and the insidious spread of corruption. Now let's be familiar with the characters. First one, Hamlet. Hamlet is the introspective and complex prince of Denmark who is driven to avenge his father's murder. His internal conflicts and philosophical dilemmas are central to the play's tragic progression. The next character is King Claudius, the antagonist whose ambition and treachery lead him to murder his brother and usurp the throne. His guilt and political maneuvering underscore the theme of corruption and deceit. The next character, Queen Gertrude. Queen Gertrude is Hamlet's mother, whose hasty remarriage to Claudius is a source of deep emotional pain and a moral ambiguity. Her character is often seen as emblematic of the compromised values within the court. The next character is Polonius. The verbose and meddlesome Lord Champlain, whose attempts to control and spy upon his children, Laertes and Ophelia, ultimately contribute to the tragedy. The next character is Ophelia, Polonius' daughter, who becomes entangled in the conflicting demands of love and loyalty. Her descent into madness and her subsequent death highlight the collateral damage of the court's corruption. The next character is Laertes, Ophelia's brother, whose fervent desire for revenge mirrors Hamlet's own. His straightforward approach to retribution contrasts with Hamlet's indecision. The next character is Horatio, Hamlet's loyal friend and a confidant who serves as a grounding influence amidst the chaos, and ultimately as the keeper of Hamlet's story. The next character, the ghost, King Hamlet, the spectral figure whose revelation of foul play ignites the central conflict of the play, representing both a call for vengeance and the inescapable past. Now let's discuss the detailed summary of the work. Act first, where we can see seeds of vengeance and unease. Hamlet opens on the cold, foreboding battlements of Elsinore Castle, where sentinels and Horatio, Hamlet's loyal friend, witness the ghostly apparition of the deceased King Hamlet. This eerie visitation immediately establishes an atmosphere of dread and suggests that all is not well in Denmark. The appearance of the ghost hints at a secrets and unresolved injustice, setting the stage for the play's central conflict. Soon after, we are introduced to Prince Hamlet, a young man deeply affected by his father's mysterious death and the rapid remarriage of his mother, Queen Gertrude, to his uncle Claudius. Hamlet's disillusionment and mourning are palpable. His grief is compounded by his sense of betrayal. As Hamlet contemplates his loss, the ghost appears to him in private. The spectral figure reveals a shocking truth, that King Hamlet was not dead by chance, but was murdered by Claudius, who now sits on the throne. The ghost commands Hamlet to avenge his wrongful death, igniting a spark of resolve in the troubled prince, even as he is tormented by doubts about the supernatural and the morality of revenge. In parallel, the court is abuzz with unease. Claudius, having ascended to power, delivers a speech that attempts to justify his actions and reconcile the kingdom, while Gertrude's gentle reassurances fall short of assuaging Hamlet's inner turmoil. The act establishes the central theme of corruption, betrayal, and the blurring of appearances versus reality. That is a motif that will resonate throughout the play. Now moving on to Act Second, where we can see the web of deceit and the onset of feigned madness. Act Second deepens the intrigue as Hamlet's internal conflict begins to manifest outwardly. Disturbed by the ghost's revelation and his own swirling emotions, Hamlet adopts an attitude of feigned madness. His erratic behavior confounds the court and provides him with a guise under which to investigate the truth of his father's death. Polonius, the long-wanted and meddlesome courtier, is quick to conclude that Hamlet's unusual conduct stems from his unreciprocated love for Polonius' daughter Ophelia. Convinced of this diagnosis, Polonius eagerly informs King Claudius and Queen Gertrude, who becomes increasingly anxious about Hamlet's unpredictable state. To ensure that nothing nefarious is unfolding, Claudius summons Hamlet's old friends, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, to spy on him and report back any hints of conspiracy. During this act, Hamlet's internal soliloquies offer glimpses into his tormented soul. In these moments, he debates the nature of existence and contemplates the chasm between outward appearances and inner truth. His observations not only reflect his disillusionment with the corrupt court, but also serve to question the nature of madness. That is his behavior entirely feigned, or does the pressure of his burden threaten to drive him over the edge into genuine insanity? The theme of appearance versus reality becomes more pronounced as Hamlet's deliberate feigning of madness cloaks his acute awareness of the treacherous world around him. Now moving on to Act 3, where we can see confrontation, confirmation, and a catastrophe. Act 3 is the dramatic turning point of the play where tension and uncertainty reach fever pitch. Hamlet devises an ingenious plan to confirm Claudius' guilt. He stages a play within a play known as the Mousetrap. This performance mirrors the circumstances of King Hamlet's murder, and Hamlet watches the reactions of the court, and particularly of Claudius, very closely. When Claudius abruptly rises and storms out during the performance, his guilt is laid bare. Yet, instead of propelling Hamlet into swift action, this confirmation deepens his internal conflict and a sense of paralysis. In the same act, Hamlet confronts his mother, Queen Gertrude, in her private chamber. The confrontation is charged with a raw emotion and a moral outrage. Hamlet castigates Gertrude for her hasty remarriage and for her apparent betrayal of his father's memory. During this hated exchange, Hamlet hears a noise behind a tapestry that is aroused, and assuming an enemy lurks behind it, impulsively stabs through the fabric. He inadvertently kills Polonius, who was eavesdropping on his conversation. This tragic mistake not only marks a point of no return for Hamlet, but also amplifies the theme of misdirected violence and the destructive consequences of impulsive actions. It is also in Act 3 that Hamlet delivers one of literature's most famous soliloquies, that is, to be or not to be. In this introspective monologue, he weighs the burdens of life against the allure of death. He contemplates the pain and uncertainty inherent in human existence and the moral dilemma of taking action, revealing the profound complexity of his character. The act is a vivid interplay of public performance and private despair, as Hamlet's quest for truth is marred by his own existential dread. Now Act 4, where we can see the fallout and a descent into chaos. The repercussions of Polonius' death set in motion a cascade of tragic events in Act 4. King Claudius, alarmed by the unpredictable Hamlet and the potential threat he poses, resolves to eliminate him once and for all. Claudius sends Hamlet off to England with a Rosencrantz and a Guildenstern, secretly carrying orders for Hamlet's execution upon his arrival, a clear sign of the depth of his treachery and his desperate need to secure his power. Simultaneously, the personal toll of the unfolding events begins to weigh heavily on other characters. Ophelia, already emotionally vulnerable from the conflict between her love for Hamlet and her duty to her father, descends into madness. Her grief and confusion are portrayed through her disjointed songs and erratic behavior, symbolizing the collateral damage of the corrupt court. Ophelia's tragic mental breakdown, which ultimately leads to her untimely death by drowning, serves as a poignant counterpoint to the calculated cruelty of the court's machinations. In the midst of this chaos, Laertes returns from France. Laertes is the brother of Ophelia, enriched by the death of his father, Polonius, and thus distraught over the disintegration of his sister's sanity. Laertes is consumed by a desire for swift and a decisive revenge. Unlike Hamlet, who is paralyzed by introspection, Laertes is quick to embrace the path of violent retribution. His fiery determination makes him a perfect pawn for Claudius, who sees in Laertes an opportunity to rid himself of Hamlet once and for all. The stage is set for a deadly confrontation as Claudius and Laertes conspire to orchestrate a duel that will bring about the final reckoning. Act 4 is characterized by escalating tension and mounting despair. The political and personal betrayals intertwine as the royal court becomes increasingly unstable. Hamlet's isolation deepens even as he faces the external plots against him. His inner battle rages on, leaving him trapped in a labyrinth of doubt and regret. That lays the groundwork for the catastrophic events that will soon engulf all the central characters. Now the last act, Act 5, where we have the climatic tragedy and the restoration of order. In a final act, the narrative's inexorable pull toward destruction reaches its zenith. Act 5 opens in a grim graveyard where Hamlet encounters a gravedigger engaged in a darkly humorous yet profound meditation on death. The gravedigger's casual treatment of mortality, underscored by the discovery of Yorick's skull, forces Hamlet to confront the physical reality of death. This scene, steeped in memento mori imagery, reinforces the play's recurring theme, that is, death is the great equalizer, rendering all human endeavors fleeting and untimely futile. The mood of the graveyard scene quickly gives way to the impending climax. Claudius' intricate plan to secure his power are about to come to fruition as he sets a trap for Hamlet in a guise of a friendly duel. Laertes, wielding a poisoned sword, is positioned to strike down Hamlet in what appears to be a fair contest of skill. Additionally, a poisoned cup is prepared as a backup, a final measure of treachery devised by Claudius. During the duel, the tension is palpable. Hamlet and Laertes exchange blows, their conflict embodying the broader struggle between calculated vengeance and impulsive retribution. In the midst of the combat, Queen Gertrude accidentally drinks from the poisoned cup intended for Hamlet, her sudden collapse symbolizing the wide-reaching consequences of the corrupt court's schemes. As the duel unfolds, both Hamlet and Laertes are wounded by the tainted weapon. The exchange of blows with the poisoned sword encapsulates the theme of mutual destruction, a poignant reminder that in the pursuit of revenge, all parties are doomed to suffer. In a final burst of determination, Hamlet manages to fatally wound Claudius, exchanging revenge that has haunted him since the god's first appearance. However, the victory is Pyrrhic. With the death of Laertes, Gertrude, and Claudius, the fabric of the Danish court is irrevocably torn apart. Hamlet, mortally wounded himself, takes his last moments to reflect on the tragic chain of events that has led him to his point. In his dying breath, he implores Horatio, the ever-loyal friend, to bear witness to the truth of what has transpired and to ensure that his story endures as a sample lesson for future generations. The play concludes with the arrival of Fortinbras, the determined Norwegian prince. Fortinbras' entry into the blood-soaked hall and a subsequent claim to the Danish throne symbolize the end of a corrupt era and the beginning of a new order. His ascension is a stark reminder that even amidst overwhelming tragedy and decay, the cycle of power and the potential for renewal persists. Now let's analyze the main quotes from the play. First one. Oh, that this too solid flesh would melt, though and resolve itself into a dew. In his first soliloquy, in Act 1, Scene 2, Hamlet laments his own existence in the wake of grief and disillusionment. His wish for his solid flesh to dissolve reveals his profound despair and a desire to escape a corrupt world, a world where betrayal, that is his mother's remarriage, intensifies his inner torment. Now the next quote. Frailty, thy name is woman. Also in Act 1, Hamlet bitterly reproaches his mother through these words, Queen Gertrude, for her perceived weakness and moral lapse. This line not only reflects his personal anguish, but also exposes the Elizabethan gender norms and his conflicted attitudes towards women which echo throughout the play. Now the next quote. Something is rotten in the state of Denmark. It is spoken by Marcellus in Act 4, Scene 4. After witnessing the ghost, this line serves as a chilling metaphor for the moral and political decay pervading the kingdom. It hints at a corruption lurking beneath the court surface, that is, a decay that will ultimately unravel the entire state. Now the next quote. Revenge is foul and a most unnatural murder. In Acts 4, Scene 5, the ghost of King Hamlet reveals the truth behind his death, charging Hamlet with avenging his foul and a most unnatural murder. This command sets the entire tragedy in motion, establishing revenge as the central driving force and thrusting Hamlet into an ethical and existential crisis. Now the next quote. There are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy. Also delivered in Act 4, Scene 5, this line reflects Hamlet's growing awareness of the mysterious and inexplicable aspects of life. By addressing Horatio, he suggests that human knowledge is limited, a theme that resonates throughout the play as appearances conceal deeper, often unsettling truths. Now the next quote. There is nothing either good or bad, but a thinking makes it so. In Act 2, Scene 2, Hamlet philosophizes with a Rosencrantz and Guildenstern about the subjectivity of experience. This observation challenges fixed moral values and underscores the idea that reality is filtered through individual perception. That is, one of the play's central meditations on appearance versus reality. Now the next quote. What a piece of work is a man, how noble in reason, how infinite in faculties. Also from Act 2, Hamlet praises the human form in a seemingly admiring terms before expressing his disillusionment. His mixed sentiment reveals a man torn between awe for human potential and a despair at the failure of humanity to live up to that ideal, deepening his internal conflict. Now the next chord. I have of late, but therefore I know not, lost all my mirth. Here, Hamlet admits his recent loss of joy in Act 2, Scene 2, suggesting that grief and existential doubt have robbed him of the capacity to enjoy life. This confession not only heightens the tragic dimensions of his character, but also sets the stage for the introspection that it defines his subsequent soliloquies. Now the next chord. The play is the thing wherein I will catch the conscience of the king. In Act 2, Scene 2, Hamlet devises a plan to expose King Claudius's guilt by staging a play that mirrors the murder of his father. This meta-theatrical moment underscores Hamlet's belief in art's power to reveal truth and marks his shift from introspection to active investigation. The next chord. To be or not to be, that is the question. Perhaps the most famous line in English literature that happens in Act 3, Scene 1 of Hamlet, Hamlet's soliloquy wrestles with the nature of existence. The contemplation of life versus death, action versus inaction, encapsulates his existential crisis and has resonated with audiences as a profound meditation on human condition. Now the next chord. Get thee to a nunnery. In Act 3, Scene 1, Hamlet's harsh command to Ophelia is laden with anger, bitterness, and ambiguous intent. While on one level it appears as a rebuke against perceived female deceit, it also reflects his disillusionment with her sexuality and his desire to protect her from the corruption he sees in himself and the court. Now the next chord. Oh, what a noble mind is here overthrown! It is spoken by Horatio in Act 3, Scene 1. This exclamation laments the tragic decline of Hamlet, a mind of great potential now undergone by internal conflict and external corruption. It captures the loss of brilliance in the midst of moral decay and underscores the personal tragedy that lies at the heart of the play. Now the next chord. The lady doth protest too much, methink. Delivered in Act 3, Scene 2, during the play within a play, this line is a wry commentary on overcompensation in declarations of loyalty and love. It serves as a subtle critique of excessive performance, both on stage and in life, hinting that too much protest can itself be a sign of guilt or insincerity. This line is spoken by Gertrude. Now the next chord. Now might I do it, Pat. Now he is praying. In Act 3, Scene 3, Hamlet hesitates to kill Claudius while he is in prayer, fearing that killing him in a moment would send his soul to heaven. This moment of inaction exposes the moral and philosophical paralysis that characterizes Hamlet's quest for vengeance as he grapples with the implications of his actions. Now the next chord. I will speak daggers to her, but use none. Also in Act 3, Hamlet vows to confront his mother with harsh words rather than physical violence. Act 3, Scene 2. The metaphor of speaking daggers powerfully conveys his intent to wound with the language, emphasizing the destructive potential of words and the fine line between verbal and physical harm. Now the next line. Oh, from this time forth, my thoughts be bloody or be nothing but. In Act 4, Scene 4, after witnessing Fortinbras' decisive action, Hamlet declares that his thoughts must now be bloody if they are to amount to anything. This line marks a dramatic turning point as Hamlet resolves to shed his paralyzing indecision in favor of active, if violent, retribution. Now the next chord. How all occasions do inform against me, and I spoil my dull vengeance. Also from Act 4, Scene 4, Hamlet reflects on how every event around him seems to underscore his failure to act. The line reveals his mounting frustration and serves as a catalyst for his final determination, an acknowledgement that a procrastination has cost him precious time in his pursuit of justice. Now the next line. Alas, poor Yorick, I knew him, Horatio. In Act 5, Scene 1, while holding the skull of the court jester Yorick, Hamlet contemplates the inevitability of death and the fleeting nature of life. This moment is a poignant memento mori that encapsulates the play's meditation on mortality and the decay that spares no one, regardless of status or wit. Now the next chord. There is a divinity that shapes our ends, rough hew them how we will. Spoken in Act 5, Scene 2, Hamlet muses on fate and destiny as he confronts the chaos around him. This line suggests that a higher power ultimately governs human affairs, implying that no matter how much we strive or plan, our destinies are ultimately in the hands of divine providence, a humbling reflection on human limitations. Now the next chord, the rusty silence. In his final moments, Act 5, Scene 2, Hamlet utters these somber words as he succumbs to his wounds. The brevity of this statement carries a powerful finality, that is, a poignant, unadorned acceptance of death that punctuates the tragic cycle of vengeance, loss, and the inexorable pull of fate.